You've studied parabolas and ellipses, using a note sheet, carefully completing a book assignment, and doing the mini checks. But it's always been my goal to get you to the point where you can teach yourself the last conic section on hyperbolas. Now the thought here is that you've been developing the framework to understand the conic characteristics, how they have equations, and the equations have centers, vertices, and foci. And so now what I'm going to ask you to do is try to apply those same principles to hyperbolas. Now one more time I'm going to ask you to do some reading, to do some thinking, and ultimately to do some understanding of these hyperbolas on your own. All right, now I know what you're thinking. I can't wait, Mr. Naylor, I'm ready. Wait, that's not what you're thinking? You're thinking, how am I going to know if I'm doing this correctly if I'm teaching it to myself? Well, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to first take the notes paper that I'm going to give you and carefully work through it using the pacing and the sequencing I'm going to explain at the end of the video. And then only after you read the definitions, you think about the examples, and you try some of the problems on your own. Only after you do that, then you're going to check your answer with my solution key. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. Don't just copy off the solution key. Because if you copy off the key, you're missing out on all the learning, all the thinking, and really the types of questions that I want you to be asking yourself to get these answers correct.
All right, now this notes sheet is carefully designed for you to get the necessary learning of hyperbolas. Now, just like the parabolas and the ellipses, you're going to have to do some reading, and you're going to use your book. So you're going to start, find page 649, take a look at the definition. It's going to sound similar to the other conic sections, but there's some things that now are different, which you're going to find as you continue to read. And then you're going to fill in these two sketches. Now, you're only going to fill in these two sketches for now. You're going to want to wait on this one. There shouldn't be anything that you need to fill in there. You're not ready for that yet. Keep reading, find out a little bit more about the equations, and then you can fill in the equations. You should be able to fill all of these in, but you will find out that you really don't know too much about B. That's fine. Don't worry about the letter B. Although you should be able to fill in some information about A and C, you might feel like that you're waiting on B. And again, that is fine. A couple more sketches to look at on page 650. Make sure you look at them. Now you're going to want to turn the paper over, and now you're going to want to start working out some problems. As you work out the problems, the idea here is that I always give you a problem that you can kind of learn from the book. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to actually read the problem from the book. Don't just copy. Make sure you're thinking why. Why did we do this step? Why is this true? Now, all these things are in the book, but these fill in the blanks are made to help you kind of work through that learning. And now it's time to do it on your own. You're going to want to do the student problem on your own. And at this time, you're probably going to say, well, how do I know if I'm right? Well, I did supply an answer key, but you want to be really careful how you use the answer key. Use it to check your work. Don't use it to get the answers. That's exactly what would have happened in class. I would have been around to show you the answers had you asked. Now, once you finish number one, you're ready to learn a little bit more about asymptotes. Okay, those asymptotes and what's known as the conjugate axis is going to be back on the front of the paper. So it's time to flip back over to the front, and the idea is now you're going to be able to fill in some information in this last sketch. It's a really good sketch, again, that you're going to find on page 651, and then that'll allow you now to understand what's going on with the letter B. In fact, you can also create some more statements about the asymptotes that I would expect that you're putting into this box. Now, once you know things about the asymptotes, it's time to flip back over to the back and take a look at example 2. Same thing, it's in the book. Follow it, try to understand why you're filling in these answers and why the graph looks like the way that it does. But of course, it's now time to try one on your own. Now this problem number 2 you're going to want to do on your own, but again, I have provided the answer key for you to be able to check. Take a look at it. Did you get it right? Sometimes people end up with the graph going the wrong direction, and you want to make sure you know why your graph is in the wrong direction. That is, if it looks different from mine. Now, sometimes at this point, people are kind of ready to do the book assignment, but I'm going to warn you to make sure that you study example 3. That's on page 652, so that you can do number 3 that I provided right here. So again, look at something in the book, but then try this problem on your own. Careful, if you don't try this problem, you're going to find yourself missing some ideas that I'm going to be grading on the quiz and eventually on the test that you actually will take on this. So don't copy this problem. Don't just look at it and say, well, I could do that. You want to work through it, and then you can check your answer with the answer key that I provided.
Okay, now there's one more thing I want to tell you, and it's probably the biggest point of confusion with students when it comes to hyperbolas, and that is understanding the lengths A and B. You see, A and B do not work exactly like they did with ellipses. Instead, side A will just go with the positive variable, and then side B, that'll go with the negative variable. So I don't want you to think that side A is always the longest axis. Actually, side A just goes with the positive variable, and then side B, it goes with the negative variable.
I'm getting them